Welcome to another instalment of our Inglis sales webinars. This time we are focusing on the Inglis Australian Weanling sale, which this year has seen an incredible 415 foals catalogued. Joining me on the panel is Rae-Louise Kelly from Fernrigg Farm, Jemma Unwala of Avesta Bloodstock, and our very own Brett Gilding, Senior Bloodstock Consultant and Auctioneer. Welcome everyone. Thanks for making the time to link up for this discussion.
Thanks for having us, Jemma. Cheers.
Thank you. As I mentioned, the Weanling sale this year has been very strongly supported by vendors, 415 Weanlings, to be held over 2 days, the sale, the 4th and 5th of May. And I really want to hone in to begin with on the business of pinhooking, because that's the major driving force behind the Weanling market. Jimmy, your focus has been on Weanlings and broodmares under your Avesta Bloodstock banner. I read an article that you were quoted in last year, and you said pinhooking is hard. What's the most challenging part of buying Weanlings to pinhook?
The most challenging part that I find is to predict where the market's going to be in 12 months. Even if you remove something like COVID that had happened, something or the other happens in 12 months' time. It's a long time in any market, you know. So that is the first challenge. The second challenge is probably predicting the right stallion trends, because unfortunately we cater to a very fickle-minded buying bench, you know, and I don't mind saying it because I'm one of them. A stallion could be hot in January and be dead in the water by June, you know. So it changes a lot very quickly. So not just to predict where the market's going to be, but what the people want. And then the last factor would be to use your imagination, because you're looking at a product that is unfurnished. So you kind of have to use your imagination, which I presume comes with experience, on what that product will look like in 12 months' time. So I think, you know, if you culminate all three of that, it's not easy. So yeah, it definitely is. It's hard to find them, and then at the right price too. So.
The right price, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Rae-Louise, Fernrigg is a vendor and a buyer at the Australian Weanling sale. From your perspective, are Weanlings more or less challenging than yearlings to trade? Because, well, Jimmy mentioned the crystal ball aspect of looking at Weanlings. Yearlings is the crystal ball aspect as well as gallopers, but Weanlings are so much younger, obviously.
Yeah, like I personally feel there's a bigger buying bench there for the Weanlings. There's obviously pinhooking's a big thing in Australia, and the market's open enough where it allows people to come in at, you know, 5 or 10,000 or at the top end. And I feel there's also like more trainers with their own farms now who are happy to buy a good type of weanling and put it in the paddock for a year. You know, so I personally feel there's a lot more people there to buy weanling than to buy a yearling, and obviously a lot less things for the vets to fail them on at this younger age as well.
It can all change so much.
Yeah.
Brett, you're a Bloodstock agent, obviously. How do the agents assess the weanlings for this catalogue? Because again, I mentioned the skill looking at weanlings for a yearling sale. It's similar to looking at yearlings, I suppose, and looking at the galloper that they might be, but they have so much developing to do. How do we assess it as an agency?
Yeah, look, everyone's obviously got a different opinion of what type of foal they want to buy and where they think it could be in 12 or 18 months' time. And to back up what Rae-Louise said, you've got end users here, so you've got trainers and people who are here want to buy a horse to race because they don't want to buy one as a yearling for whatever reason. It can be more cost effective to get into the racehorse industry to buy a foal than it is to buy a yearling. And then you've got the pinhookers obviously looking to purchase something that they feel will be commercial in 12 months' time to turn a profit. So look, in terms of the actual physical horse, you will find, as what I like to refer to sale as the wholesale market, and then if you bring them back as yearlings, that's hitting the retail market. So, you know, you've got to think about what a Mick Price or, a Chris Waller, what can they buy at a yearling sale? What's going to be commercial in 12 months' time that they can sell to their owners? So pinhookers have a very tough task of obviously trying to identify those stallions, but then also backing that up with the type of animal they're buying. And some may be more forgiving on certain faults than others. There's no such thing as a perfect as a yearling or a weanling, as we all know. But, you know, I think the basic things like, you know, size, strength, conformation, that foals that are generally correct through the legs, you know, most times they will tend to stay that way. You know, if a horse has got a conformation fault one way or the other, some might be happy to take a punt on it, think they can take it home and prove it. And if it goes the right way, which happens all the time, you know, they can get a healthy profit. So it really comes down to each individual agents and their eye in regards to looking at a foal, where they can see it in 12 months in their eye and what their end purpose is with it. So look, it's certainly challenging, and it's challenging for the English Bloodstock team. We look at every foal on the ground. We're obviously assessing them in terms of where we feel they may or may not sit in our yearling sales next year. We've got the luxury of actually going back in June and July, and then going back in August, September and October before we get to make a final decision with the vendors in regards to which horses together we want to put into the yearling sales, where the pinhookers, they're putting their money on the line at a sale next week. And if the horses change or goes the wrong way, well, they still obviously own it. So, there's it can be very fruitful, lots of opportunity, can be very rewarding, but it can also be very challenging.
And that's that experience factor that, Jimmy, you mentioned before, that you've got to draw on the imagination you have to use. And that's, you don't have those unless you're going back every year. You're looking at the weanlings, you're then looking at them as yearlings. How have you applied your knowledge from all your previous roles in the industry when you're assessing a weanling?
Well, I've been lucky that I've actually worked for two organizations like Dali and Aquis, and both had a lot of volume of horses. So that gives you a really good eye to look at a lot of horses. I also tend to look at mostly all the horses in any sale I go to. So that helps. But I've also learned to be a bit more forgiving on horses in general. So what I like to do is, from experience, I guess, like, I'm not as experienced like a James Best or like a Paul Willis who've done it all their lives. But I like to learn from what people look at a horse. Like when I take my notes, actually, like a hawk, I look at who's bidding on every horse in a sales ring, and people think I'm rude and they wave at me, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't even see you, because I'm actually looking at who can forgive me. And I like to see that, because I want to learn from successful people what they can forgive and what they're successful buying. So that kind of helps me. And, overall, so I guess over a period of time, when you're looking at so many horses and you're doing it day in and day out, you get better at it. But I always believe you learn and you learn and you learn. And it's not just with weanlings, even with yearlings. Like, funnily, I sold a horse with Rae-Louise. It was a colt we had, and she was very slacky in the pasterns, and we put the reserve at 80 grand, and it ended up making over 200. And I was actually shocked, and I thought, how come someone forgive it? And John Foot bought it. So I actually walked straight up to him and I said, look, John, you bought the horse, da-da-da-da-da. Why didn't it put you off? And he just told me something simple. He goes, oh, he'll strengthen on it in time. And that was as simple as it was. So I don't mind asking that question to people sometimes when they're buying a horse. Like, if I missed out on something, what is it that they accepted? So, it is a learning curve. It is about gaining more experience and just going with it, I guess. So.
Yeah, well, the likes of James Bester and co weren't experts overnight either, Jimmy. I mean, this is when you love the game and you're passionate, it's all about learning and picking up from other people.
100%. Yeah.
And Rae-Louise, you've had years of experience similarly preparing sale horses on farms, working with pedigrees and nutrition of young thoroughbreds. How much confidence has that given you with launching Fernrigg, and you've made a real go of pinhooking these weanlings in the first few years?
Yeah, I think most people know Fernrigg was set up on the back of our first few pinhooks. We didn't have a backer, so we had to kind of go out on our own to provide a yearling draft for the farm. My time spent in Kentucky was the most valuable years of my life. As far as I'm concerned, I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with my client at Lane's End, who, he took me around farms like Claiborne, Stone Street, Windstar, looking at thousands of yearlings and weanlings each year, teaching me everything he knew. And I feel America and Australia have similar principles when it comes to buying yearlings. Like they both want early speed, soundness, and, a horse that's going to hit the track sooner rather than later. And yeah, obviously all that combined with being fortunate enough to work at places like Watership Down and Widden and preparing horses that have gone on to be some of the best athletes in the world give me the confidence in knowing the type of yearling Fernrigg have to produce at the sales. And yeah, obviously having Podrick on board as well is something a lot of people are, can't experience. And he brought a lot of knowledge from across the world as well. And
yeah, lucky, big team effort there with your husband, Podrick. Brett, specifically this sale, the Australian Weanling sale, what are some of the pinhook successes and graduates in the recent years?
Yeah, look, the sales been quite amazing in terms of the foals that have come out of it and then gone on to yearling sales the following year. Just to recall a couple over the last 12 months. Speaking of a couple of people you mentioned, Jimmy, James Bester, he bought a Rubik. He turned 65,000 into 270. He bought a Minari 55 into 210. Paul Willits bought a lovely Saxon Warrior here last year for 30,000, turned it into 210. There's a couple of great results at Classic with a $42,000 written buy and a $180,000 capitalist being turned into 160 odd and 375,000. So, they are the results which drive people back to the Weanling market. They know that there are opportunities there every year. And if you just have I'll just recap those sides. Rubik, capitalist, Saxon Warrior, written by Minari in deep field. The deep field was 28 into 100, one at the lower end. It shows you that the spread of stallions that you can actually have success of buying foals and pin hooking. It doesn't always have to be the most commercial or the most popular sire at the time. As Jimmy said, trends can change and they go one way or the other. So yeah, there's massive opportunity. The likes of Capitalist, I think we've got about 17 in the sale, and he's one of the best young sires in the land. So I'm sure they're going to be highly sought after.
We'll talk about some of the stallions a little later in this catalogue, but Brett, it's not just the pinhooks as well. We've also had some wonderful gallopers that have come out of this Weanling sale over the years, one of which is a two-time Everest winner. Yeah,
of course, Red Zell, what a superstar he was. He won over $16 million. I'm sure we'd all like to own 5% in him. He cost $45,000 as a Weanling. The likes of Sprite, Group 1 winner, Leicester won a Group 1, Hootson, Reelam, Ruby, Be Good to Your Mother. And I think the success of those horses on the racetrack, what it provides to the market and the industry is that you can come to a Weanling sale and buy an elite horse. And at the end of the day, when you're buying a horse to race, whether it's at a Weanling sale or a yearling sale or a ready to race sale, your dream is to buy one that's going to be elite. You want a Winx, you want a Nature Strip, you want a Red Zell. So the fact that you can buy those type of horses at the Sydney Weanling sale is quite incredible. And there'll be plenty of end users out here this week looking to do exactly that.
Yeah, a couple of others that you could have bought at this Weanling sale, Be Good to Your Mother, Sprite, Leicester, Hootson, Reelam and Ruby. A few of those fillies ended up being broodmares with very profitable results in the sale ring with their yearlings as well. A few questions now for the whole panel. Jimmy and Rae-Louise, starting with you, Jimmy. Have you had more success buying the obvious Weanling at a sale, or do you tend to look for the improver, rough diamond? I guess it comes down to budgets as well. Has your model changed, or is it changing as well as you go along?
I would say for me at least personally, it's a bit of both. Also, just to mention what's also happened in the last few years is originally I feel the Australian Weanling sales used to be a dump ground for the worst horses on your farm. It's changing. People are actually now presenting their better stock, and some farms are presenting the entire foal crop as Weanlings. So I think it has changed from the old school days where people went and tried to find that diamond in the rough that would improve. You can now go and actually find a really nice horse that is just undervalued in that market, whether it's a bit backward, and horses improve on pedigree and they improve physically. So it depends on what you're looking at. So I think that's changed a lot. Like you look at your catalog now compared to 10 years ago, there's some seriously good pedigree, good looking, correct horses that are available. So I reckon it's a bit of both. Like I like to find one that's going to be missed for 10 grand and try and make a bit out of it. And I also don't mind taking shares in something that's really forward and is well presented the way it is. But I think the key is numbers. Like if someone had 50 grand to spend, I would tell them buy 2 for 25. Or if you have it 100, buy 3 for that, spread your risk. I think numbers is very important in anything we do with horses. So.
And Rae-Louise, what about you in terms of looking for the rough diamond? You guys shopped here last year. I know you made the comment about the inspections being so strong and you thought, gosh, we might have to up our budget a little bit. Are you looking for that improver because you're able to do that yourself on the farm in Podrick as well, or are you looking for the obvious?
Yeah, like we try to look at every Weanling on the whole complex for every Weanling sale. We've had some good results buying it, the cheaper ones and the more expensive ones. And we've got a lot of friends and, clients who are happy to, are looking to buy at either end of the market as well. So we try to get involved across the wholesale, and I couldn't agree more with Jimmy. You know, the quality is improving every year. You know, you used to be able to, you know, get a pinhook and hopefully you get to classic, whatever, but now you can actually pinhook and you have an Easter horse quite easily. It's incredible, the quality of the stock that's provided now.
And Brett, just wanted to throw at you, just on the back of what Rae-Louise just said, it's probably poignant in that we mentioned someone like Fairhill Farm. I mean, it's not, as Jimmy was saying, these weanlings aren't just ones they can't sell later. They're specifically targeting this sale with some really quality young stock because they feel that they'll really stand out at a weanling sale.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike O'Donnell, he's been a great supporter of the sale for a number of years. He brings everything off the farm there, which he owns as well as his clients. You know, it's a bit of the package deal he does there with his clients, and people know what they're going to get with Mike when they come here. You know, there's not the best one sitting at the home in the paddock. He's had some outstanding results on the racetrack with some of those horses, as well as people buying off him and actually making a profit at the yearling sale. And you know, Mike will be the first one to admit that's what he wants to see. Because at the end of the day, if he's selling all his horses and there's no margin in him, there's not going to be a margin in every horse, but there's going to be a margin in a fair whack of them. That is what is driving people back to his draft every year. It's a great business model, you know, and to back up what, you know, Rae-Louise said earlier, you know, we're at the wholesale market here at the weaning sale. People are more forgiving of certain issues for whatever reason at a weaning sale, maybe compared to a yearling sale. So, you know, there might be something that looks a little bit small now, but it's going to be perfectly sound and big enough come his 2-year-old racing career. And that's where the opportunities are there. So, you know, it's certainly not a dumping ground. There's some outstanding drafts being represented here. And Michael Donald's been at the forefront of that for a number of years.
Yeah, the sibling to Fiesta was here last year, and I've got a filly, a half to Fiesta, Piero out of now in this year's catalogue as well. Next question for all of you. Rae-Louise, you're the first one to answer. What percentage of importance would you place on pedigree and type? So is it 50% for either way, or is one more important than the other, pedigree or type?
Oh, like, I think it depends what sale you're aiming your pinhook at. But I definitely feel a good type will always sell well in any sale. And over the years, there's been some extremely good racehorses with very little pedigree to show for it. And yeah, like, with all that in mind, though, I do feel if you've got a good type and you're trying to get to the better sale, there is always going to be a cap on what people will pay if the pedigree isn't there. So, you know, a big part of it is where you're trying to aim your horse at, and yeah. But I do feel if we like a good horse, it lacks a bit of pedigree, but it's a good type, we're happy to take the punt, you know.
Yep, I understand. And Jimmy, your opinion on pedigree versus type in terms of what you place importance on?
Yeah, look, I agree with Rae-Louise. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but type trumps pedigree in Australia. And it should be the other way for me. Normally, when I'm buying, it's different. When I'm looking to buy a weanling, type's everything to me. When I'm buying a yearling for myself, I forgo of type. I actually go for pedigree. So it's a bit different in what I do. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, Australia is an on-sell market. You're buying a weanling to on-sell it to a yearling buyer. The yearling buyer is going to buy that horse and on-sell it to his owners, or a syndicator will have a plethora of people he wants to sell it to. So everything is being on-sold. So it's like anything. People want pretty women, pretty cars, pretty houses, and pretty horses, you know. So unfortunately, type trumps pedigree. But I do believe that, you know, you need a balance of both. And it depends on what sale, I guess, you're trying to get into. And I think that's more in Australia because here it's all dominated by speed, you know. Like if you go to Europe and you go to England and Ireland, you'll rarely see a good stallion that lacks pedigree, rarely. Here you can see a plethora of them have no pedigrees, but they were speedy squibs and they can make it. So I guess it's horses for courses, you know. But when I'm buying a weanling, yes, types everything because they can come out and walk and they look like they belong. You'll find a buyer for them as a yearling. You definitely would. So,
well, Jimmy, on that with the type factor with weanlings, what defects are you able to forgive in terms of that confirmation? X-ray faults, or do you X-ray the foals?
I do, and again, it's like Rae-Louise will tell you better. She's married a bit, but when it comes to X-rays, I think I think a lot of people are uneducated in what they're listening to and what they know, because it's not like it's a pass or a fail. There's a lot in between, and I hear a lot of people say that, and I think that's incorrect, because yes, there is developmental changes in a horse's X-ray, and then there is diseases. So you got to know what you're looking at, and I think you should communicate really well with your vets to ask them all the questions when you're buying the horses. Like a lot of horses will go through changes at that stage of their life. And like I was an animal science major. And when I was in Kentucky, like there's a study being done that says that the incidences of OCD, which is the most common thing we hear with foals, actually increases when you restrict movement. So when you restrict exercise, it actually goes up, and we lock them up and we're preparing them for a weanling sale. And when you come to, again, with weanlings, and people go, oh, there's a high chance of this horse being lame. A good vet will tell you that lameness in the horse and anything related to is the performance inhibiting ability actually comes mostly from exercise-induced injuries, not from what you see at the weanling sale in an X-ray. So you people must educate themselves, and I try to do that a lot for myself when it comes to X-rays. So I'm very forgiving. Okay, there are some things, yes, you can't forgive that, There's a cyst like a hole in the knee. Okay, I get that, but there's a lot there that will change if you give the horse 6 months off. So it really depends on what sale you're trying to get that weanling to. And I guess if you talk to your vet, I think you can do way better than what we've done in the past. So.
Yeah. Well, Rae-Louise, easy for you to talk to the vet with Podreg. Do you forgive certain defects? Because, I mean, you'd be happy often that you can go home and teach or improve the walk and strengthen the hocks of a horse, as Jimmy was saying, that movement that can help improve a horse's, are there anything that you forgive?
I think we're quite forgiving on a lot of things, providing that, the weanling has other attributes that we absolutely love. And yeah, I 100% agree on the X-rays. Our big thing has always been, to buy a racehorse rather than just a sale result. And Podrig's very forgiving on things that he knows is not going to affect it as a racehorse.
Yeah.
And yeah, like in regards to the walking and the things, I don't know if you can teach a horse to walk, but I definitely think you can improve the walk by improving the strength of the horse. And like, in my opinion, a good yearling prep should be tailored to each horse individually. And there's a lot of things you can do during the prep to build up certain parts of the animal and develop him and help him move better. So I do think you can improve a lot of things.
Right, you can't really comment on the X-ray factor because we're not privy to those heading into the sale. But what about you looking at a weanling? Are there things that you're prepared to forgive in terms of confirmation?
Yeah, look, I think, each individual horse is different, as the guys, as Ray and Jimmy had mentioned. But, you might get a horse, for example, that might just be it might be an October foal and it might be a bit narrow through the chest and rotates out a little bit in front. And you look at the foal and like, it's sort of maybe 1.5, maybe 2 rotated out in front. But, as that horse grows, develops, thickens through the chest, that the horse is naturally going to come round. So, there are certainly, there's many little things like that where you can look at from our point of view. And when we're assessing them in terms of putting them into yearling sales, you can look at that and go, well, look, it's actually quite a nice horse now. It rotates out in front at the moment, but in 6 months' time, that's likely to have come round. We think it'll be fine. And you're not gonna be right all the time, because that's horses. You get them right and you get them wrong as well. But generally little things like that. Horses might toe in a little bit or toe out. Might be a little bit upright because of their stage. They could be growing and going through a certain stage, and then the fetlocks and the pasterns can relax, so then they're not upright. Vice versa, as Jimmy mentioned with the slack pasterns, they can strengthen up. Foals can generally have longer pasterns because that's one of the first bones to develop. They can be quite long, but then they grow into them, and you can look at a horse and go, geez, this is very long in the pasterns, and you look at it 6 months' time and you don't even comment on it. So look, that all comes with experience, and you're always teaching yourself and learning from other people. I'm a big advocate for taking as many notes on every single horse as you can, positive and negative, and that way when you go back as a yearling at the yearling sales, you can look at what you wrote about it as a foal. Yep. And I can tell you, when there's a nice horse that comes out of an Inglis sale that hits wins a race as a 2-year-old, the first thing we do on a Monday morning is run to our catalogues and see what we wrote about it. Who liked it, who didn't, what did we think about its knees or conformation, and go, oh, well, we all thought it was a bit offset, and it's just won a Group 1. So there's no exact rule, but there's plenty of things you can forgive with horses. You got to think they're only babies. They've got so much developing to do.
Brett, just to clarify for those people who aren't aware, you're talking about looking at weanlings for a yearling sale, because you're not just looking at these weanlings at the Australian weanling sale. You're looking at the team are looking at all the weanlings to put them into the yearling sales, whether they've come to the weanling sale or not. So just to clarify that for those that aren't aware. Jimmy and Rae-Louise, what are your processes post-sale for your weanling purchases? So Jimmy, for you, where do you send your weanlings usually?
Well, it really depends on who I'm buying weanlings with. Mostly, I team up with people. So say, for example, if I bought one with Rae-Louise, it'll end up at Fernrigg. So I don't really get involved much once I buy the horse. I leave that to the experts who know what to do. But I do like dealing with people that treat horses individually. Every horse should have a program tailored for him or her. It shouldn't be a blanket sort of a thing. And some farms are very good at doing it and some are not. So I try and align myself with farms that do that. And just one more thing before you go to Rae-Louise, what Brett said, I wanted to say that it also comes with what you can live with is what you've seen. Like I see that a lot with trainers. Like I won't take a stallion's name, but a trainer might have one stallion and it's like a yearling by XYZ stallion and it's no good, and he'll buy the stallion forever. Same thing, a trainer might buy a weanling or a yearling with an offset knee and it breaks down and he goes, don't want to touch offset knees. Whereas someone else could win a Group 1 with an offset knee and go, I love buying, I don't care because I can manage it. So it makes a big difference what your experience has been in what you've bought, So
it makes so much sense. Rae-Louise, for you, what do you do with them when you get home? Because I imagine your process is slightly different to Jimmy's because you're hands-on with them, but you do what he likes, and that's tailor the preparation to each individual.
Yeah, look, when we get our weanlings home, we like to put them into quarantine areas. The sale is super stressful for them, and each of them, they cope in different ways, and things can develop from that. So having them in the yards to monitor them for 3 to 4 weeks just allows us to, keep a close eye on them. Obviously, we're changing their nutrition from what they've been fed previously. And so we can monitor their joints and just make sure everything's settling down post-sale. Like you said before, you get to the weanling sale, there's a couple there that might go upright or vice versa. So that also just allows us to give whatever treatment's necessary to keep on top of that. And once we're comfortable that they've settled down, they're adjusted to our feed program, they'll join other mobs similar size and age that are kind of being aimed at similar sales. We bring them into the barn once a week each month, and they just get used to being in the stable. So when prep comes around, it's not, another big deal to them. Yep. That also just allows the farrier to look at them properly. Pudgic does a monthly confirmation exam on every weanling just to make sure we're heading in the right direction and nothing's being missed in that regards. And just keep the regular handling, and when the yearling's time comes around, it's not such a shock to their system.
I'm sure you'll enjoy a holiday. In 20 years, it sounds like you're on the go all the time. Never ends. Let's talk about the stallion factor at a weanling sale. We have sort of lightly touched on it already. We've got 94 different size represented this year at the Australian weanling sale. When assessing stallions at this sale, do you think it's safer to look at the proven size, or would you be happy to take a punt on one that's just had their first yearlings through the sale ring and they've sold really well? What level of risk, I guess, are you prepared to live with? And Jimmy, you're first off the block.
Look, I'm quite open-minded when I'm buying a weanling, but again, at the end of the day, we are on selling something, and commerciality dictates that. The best perform might not be the most commercial. I've always said commerciality is not performance driven, it's emotion driven, You can you look at a farm like Newgate, for example, they're just very good at promoting their product, and I'm not, you can compare them to a lot of different farms, but they just know what they do, So sometimes when I'm buying weanlings, I look not just at the stallion who stands them, who I'm buying off, whether it's a farm that I've had success with before. And of course, you want to punt a few stallions, of course. Like I'll buy something third season, I might buy a fourth season horse. Like a lot of research will go into what's happening. I like to analyze every mare that a stallion covers. So it takes a lot of time, but I go through every mare covered by every first season horse to see what the successful breeders are breeding to, So if you see someone like a David Moody, breeding very good mares to a stallion that I didn't have on my radar, it makes me think why and what have I missed. So, all the small things, when you start putting them together, you start picking up stallions you want, And then I guess we are in a situation now where the big six stallions, whether you take Lonhro, Exceed, Snitzel, your Vinnies, they're all, Written Tycoon, they're all towards the end of their careers. So there is going to be a young bunch of horses that have to take the mantle. So we are in a very, very unique position in Australia in the next 2 or 3 years, where the stallion market is going to change completely. That's why every time, and it annoys me because I have to pay service fees, but every time a horse gets a Group 1 winner, he shoots up to 80 grand or 100 grand. They just fly because there's nothing proven in that bracket, and you want the next horse to take the step up. So we're going to go through a very interesting 3 or 4 years in the stallion ranks in Australia. So it's fascinating, but yeah, look, I'm very open-minded to what I'm looking at. I like first seasons, I like proven, and I don't mind taking a punt on a couple if they suit what I'm looking at. So.
Yeah, and Rae-Louise, you talked about type earlier. So are you looking at particular stallions, or again, you're just looking at the horse and the stallion can be a bonus?
Like I said, if you can get a good type of horse, I think people are very forgiving on the stallion come yearling time. And, if you can predict what first season stallion's going to come out as, and, with 2-year-olds running, as the rewards are a lot bigger in that respect. But yeah, it is always probably safer to stick with a proven stallion. But yeah, like if you can predict, you're going to get paid. So.
Well, that's nice. That's the aim of the game. Lost some light here, so we'll keep ploughing on anyway. Brett, I'm going to ask you the next one. We talked about the proven stallions. What about the next crop of these first season size, the next brigade? How are we factoring them in? I'm going to rattle a couple of us. Two Darn Hot, Unite and Conquer, Alabama Express, Exceedance, I'm Immortal. Yes. There's a whole range of stallions. Castelvecchio, in terms of what they did on the track. It's a really exciting time because this is the first time we're going to be seeing the progeny by them.
Yeah, it's always great when you get to have a look at the new stock that's going to be presented to the market, and that the first time that's at a Weanling sale. As Jimmy alluded before, it's a fashion industry, the horse industry, and for whatever reason, people love something new that's unproven. They sell like hotcakes come yearling sale time. So, the pinhookers, without a doubt in my mind, they will be out trying to hunt down the really nice Exceedance or Blue Point or Cosmic Force or, Magna Grecia or Castelvecchio, because they know come yearling sale next year that your syndicators, your trainers, they are going to want one of those new horses in their stable because they can sell them to their owners very quickly. Plus, it's all the unknown. You know, if you want to buy an I'm Invincible, you go to Easter and, you need $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 to buy one. You can come to Classic and buy a Cosmic Forks for 80 grand and it could be a superstar. So, that's the whole thing about the first season size. You look at Russian Revolution this year, we've got 17 Russian Revolution foals in the sale. Well, he's just had his 2-year-old crop hit the track. They've been outstanding. He's got a couple of stakes winners. They are hot property. His service fee has gone up. So if you took a punt on buying a mare and foaled him a couple of years ago, or, trying to buy a Weanling by him now, they're going to be highly sought after come yearling sale time. So, not all new size make it, as we know. That's the industry, but it's the question mark of the unknown. But yes, I know first season size are extremely popular. So, we're really looking forward to seeing what the stock's like out on the grounds next week.
We'll talk about drafts quickly as well. Rae-Louise, we'll start with you because you're obviously offering a draft. You've got 7, and just to mention, one is by a first season stallion for the next generation into sort.
Yeah, like we're selling that to sort out of a litter on behalf of a client, and he is everything you'd kind of expect from the stallion. Really strong, neat, good mover, and we have a couple of other to sorts on the farm which are all very similar. It's always exciting to see the first season crops on the ground, and there's always a stallion that you never had on your radar, and you get to the sale and you see types and you're like, oh, you know, how did I wasn't expecting that kind of thing. And I think Dassault's definitely one of them. I haven't seen a bad one yet. I've seen quite a few around the place, but yeah, no, we're expecting him to sell pretty well. He should appeal to a lot of pinhookers. You know, he looks like he'll be an early 2-year-old, just physically as he stands at the minute. So,
aside from your own of the drafts you look forward to seeing every year, I did note, having a look through some of your buys in the past few years, you do tend to have a good relationship with Fairhill.
Yeah, look, we Mike sells all his stock as Weanling, so he kind of gives you that bit of confidence that he's not just selling the write-offs. But like we said earlier, it's the Weanling sale are no longer a dumping ground, and every year the stock from all the farms gets, you know, better and better, and people are selling them for various reasons, whether it be, you know, the increased service fees that we're seeing now. People just need cash flow, which you can relate to, so you buy in with confidence that they're not just they're cast-offs, you know. And you know, like for some people, it's just takes the stress out of getting the Weanling to a yearling sale. There's a lot can go wrong in the process. So yeah, I don't think there's a farm at the complex that I've seen in the catalog that you'd avoid, you know. I think everybody's selling some really nice horses on pedigree anyway, and for genuine reasons. So
Jimmy, drafts you look forward to seeing, unless you don't have to single any out in particular?
No, like I'm going to see every winning on the ground, you know. But I was seeing that it's good to see there are a few Victorians that have brought their horses here. So Ryan Arnell has his draft. Ross Haddon from South Australia has a few. Like, he'll be sending a couple together. So I'll be looking forward to them. But yeah, no, it's good to see that mix of Weanlings. And when you just start flicking to the catalogue, there's some really good quality. Like the amount of first season horses and a mix of proven is really good, you know. So we'll try and
guy as well, actually. Another big Gil guy as well, another big.
Oh yeah, Gil guy is there too. Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry.
So no, he'll be fun.
Brett, for you, favoritism is a bit tricky, probably from your angle in terms of drafts you look forward to seeing.
Yeah, got to be very careful there. But look, I think the two of them have touched on it. The great thing about the sale and how it's growing and where it's developing is the diversity of the catalogue. You know, we've got Ross Haddon, Rathmore from South Australia, the Victorians you've just mentioned, Fairhill year in, year out. You know, Richard McClenahan, Mullaglass, he's presented a draft of 15 Weanlings for the first time under his own name. Newgate have supported the farm, the sale heavily, Torreyburn, Coolmore. So there's a great cross-section of vendors at various levels. You know, a farm like Tamak Stud Farm, you know, smaller breeder, he brings everything on the property to the Weanling sale in the Mike O'Donnell model. So, you know, there's big farms, there's small farms, there's medium farms. So I love the fact that there's great diversity from all over the country being represented here, not just by size, but, you know, from where they're raised and grazed. And as we know, a champion can come from anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And B2B Thoroughbreds have two in the sale as well. They're a fledgling farm down in the Southern Highlands, so great to see them here. Before we finish, just a question about the Chairman sale and the Broodmare sale, because obviously that follows the Weanling sale next week. Jimmy and Rae-Louise, you're both heavily involved in the Broodmare market. So Rae-Louise, I imagine you'll be very active there. You've had a great success from Chairmans in the past.
Yeah, we've managed to pick up some really nice mares. One being Arabian Gold, who we just sold her filly at Easter, and she has a colt by Vinny to sell next year, hopefully back at Easter. But yeah, I don't know, going off the strength of the market this year, I might have to team up with Jimmy to be able to afford a couple.
We tried last night. We got outbid.
On English, did you? It's a bit different then, because you've got 5 minutes to think about it if you bid under five. Oh, sorry.
It was the most painful night last night.
No.
Very exciting for us on our end and the vendors. But Jimmy, you have quite a big portfolio. You've got broodmares at many farms in the Hunter.
Yeah, look, for me, broodmares is my main market for what I do. And I'm always trying to look at something that falls through the crack. Like last year, I bought a couple of the Chairmans. And I never had the intention. Like, I look at everything, we make a budget and we put a price on it. And if they fall below that price, we're just going to buy them, you know. But sometimes you get that, so you should never go to a sale thinking it's going to be too expensive or too exclusive. You should always look at everything, and then you try and, some things will fall through the crack. Like in any sale, it happens. And if you're there and if you've done your research, it gives you the confidence to bid. You just don't want to sit there like, oh, I don't know anything about it, but it looks cheap to me, So you got to do your groundwork. And once you do that, like the quality, like I went through the chairman's catalog last night properly, and it's some really, really nice horse flesh in there, and even the normal broodmare catalog, it's pretty strong this year too, I think the first Maris takes place in Folded Brazen Bow from memory, so it's enough in there too, so people should stay back, once the weanling ends, you go on to the broodies, so yeah, there's a bit there.
Yeah, good memory, remembering lot one of the sale. That's excellent. It's over a week away. And Brett, just finally from you, it's a big week here. We're excited that the hotel's booked out for most of the week, including Chairman's Night, because that is a very special night. It's not just the sale, as we often say. It's a real event, isn't it? So much fun.
Yeah, it's turned into really a night of nights. It's not just come buy a horse or buy a mare and then go home. There's a great party atmosphere in there. Everyone's getting dressed up. All the Inglis staff will be in black tie and tuxedos once again, and the ladies will be looking outstanding, no doubt. So, and that's what we're trying to create with the Chairman's Sale. We want it to be unique. We want it to be different. Obviously, at the end of the day, the horse flesh is what matters the most, and we think we've got an outstanding catalogue there. And but we want it to be a night where a breeder or a buyer can bring along their husband or their wife who may or may not be heavily involved and say, hey, come along to this night. I know you don't love the horse racing industry for whatever reason, or you're not involved, you don't know much about it. Like my wife's a midwife, she had really no idea before I started dragging her to the races, and now she loves it. And you can put on a night like the Chairman's, the excitement, and then when you're selling mares like Shout the Bar, who's obviously going to sell very well. But I just wanted to make it a quick mention on what Jimmy said about homework for the mare sales. We had an outstanding result this year for a good client of Inglis called Reg Ryan from down in Wodonga.
Yes, we did.
A couple of years ago, he was at the Chairman's Sale. He bought a mare called Carmen Influence. I think she made 280. 290. I'll have to double check that. She was in Folder I'm Invincible, and he got $1 million for it at Easter this year. And anyone sitting there was probably thinking, how is this mare at the Chairman's in Folder I'm Invincible only making $280,000? And it just shows that, you can have any budget at the Chairman's and you can buy yourself a horse that can then go on and make a decent earn or can sell well out of it. So that's what we're most excited about. We'll kick off with the yearlings on Sunday. We'll roll into the weanlings, and then we'll get into the big brood mares, and away we go. Looking forward to it. It'll be great.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That was what I was next going to say, Brett. And it was $290,000 for Calming Influence back in 2020 at the Chairman's Sale. But yes, a very busy week ahead. We, as he said, it begins on Sunday. We've got the HTBA May sale. That's May 1. Then we have the 2-day Australian Weanling sale, Wednesday, Thursday, May the 4th and 5th, followed by the Chairman's sale, which is the one I can't wait for. 4:30 p.m. that sale kicks off on Friday, May 6th. We'll also have the coverage on our Inglis TV channels. The Australian Broodmare sale then rounds out a very busy 7 days of selling action here at Riverside on Sunday, May 8th. Good luck to all of you. Brett, you're going to be in the auctioneer roster for much of the sales. Jimmy and Rae-Louise, you'll be buying and selling all week. Thank you for coming on board tonight to talk about the Australian Weanling webinar.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you.
All right, next week we'll bring you the webinar on the Chairman's sale. So we did mention that in this webinar, so keep an eye out for that one on Facebook and Inglis TV next week. Catch you then.